Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. I gotta love this. Already we're getting some folks. Lori Tucker's already popped up, and TU Comics have already popped up on Instagram. So we've already got some folks popping up on Instagram. We're bellowing up here today. I don't even know what day of the week it is. I know it's a Wednesday. What day is it? Today's May 8th. So we bellied up here. It's early in the month of May, getting in here to the first full week. And with a first full week, why not have a person who has got a full life, full of adventures, full of travel, full of things that he's done, so he can give us the full scoop? You see that? Everything's full. Give us the full scoop. Joining us from what some people say is the best place in the U.S. to get pizza. I'm debating that because it's very debatable in my opinion, because I feel like Atlanta's the best slice of pizza I've ever had, and I've said this many times. But joining us all the way from Connecticut, it's Mr. Anthony Carter.
Hello, how are you?
Look at that. You get applause and everything, brother. So how are things in Connecticut right now?
They're cold. I'm cold. I moved here from California.
Listen, you said this earlier. What is the temperature right now in Connecticut?
It is 68 degrees.
Brother, it's not cold. It is not. not.
When you've lived in California for a long time, it's very cold. Yes.
I lived in North Carolina for years and then moved up here. And that was my big, eye opener coming to upstate New York, was when people were like, hey, it's going to be a real humid day today. It's going to be like 80 degrees with 70% humidity. And I'm like, still have to Carolinas. It was 95 with 100% humidity. What are you talking about?
Right. It was the same when I lived in Nashville.
Yep. That's been a long time. Nashville is one of the cities. I've never been to Nashville. I've been to East Tennessee. That's where my mom's people are all from, is East Tennessee.
Okay.
So I do like, they eat good in Tennessee. What just happened?
Yes, Hold on. Do.
That's a good eating. That's a good eating state right there. Like everything can be fried, battered, or plucked out of the ground in Tennessee.
Yeah, and lots of sweet tea to wash it down.
Oh, glory that is. A place where I don't have to say, can I get a sweet tea? And somebody goes, there's sugar on the table.
Right.
It feels so
That's
sinful.
very true. That's very true.
It just feels so sinful. And I did forget to tell you as we were pre-show, if you see me looking to my left, that's where my other monitor is. I promise you, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking to my left at my other monitor. Nate's already popped up talking about Baltimore's better. Nate, we do eat good in Baltimore. That's where we're all from. But I'll tell you, man.
No. You don't get pizza in Baltimore. That's where you get the seafood from. And the crab.
We do get amazing seafood. But you know what? We got some really good pizza and sub joints. That mid-Atlantic food scene is very different, because Philly, Baltimore, Delaware, we kind of like, they're like, certain things will cross those lines. Like, have you ever had a tasty cake?
Yes, of course.
Are they not the most glorious things in the world?
Yes.
And that's like a big mid-Atlantic thing that people don't understand, how glorious a tasty cake is. But hi folks, welcome to Eating Like a Fat Kid with your host Sean. Let me tell you how I'm going to do it today. Yeah, we do have, Nate, you're absolutely right. We do have the best seafood, but it's very different. Baltimore seafood is so different because we steam everything. Everything has, like, if it's a shellfish, we steam it. Where like most places are going to fry it or grill it or something like that, we steam it and try to keep all that flavor right there. And I'm going to give you the key to all Maryland steamed seafood right now. You ready, Anthony? I'm going to tell you the secret. You ready for the secret? Apple cider vinegar.
Oh, okay.
It's apple cider. We steam everything in apple cider vinegar. That's what makes it all better. But we can talk about food here in a minute, because that's why Anthony's here. He's going to talk to us a little bit about food and eating and health concerns for Black men in their community, how he's helping them out. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take care of some house cleaning. as always, folks, over my right shoulder, we got the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you got something you're supporting, like Anthony, you've got a program, something you're trying to get out there, and you've got a sticker for it, you can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, TikTok, on our website, theabovethebarpodcast.com. Let me know what you got going on. I'll send you the address where to send your sticker to. Then we read about you live on the air. Everybody gets to know about you and a little bit of free publicity there for you. So it's, again, folks, that's Sticker and a Cause. The other thing we got going on, as always, folks, we got to talk about our sponsors, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. The North America's largest custom window treatment company. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in blinds, shades, shutters, drapery, motorization. Folks, if you've never seen motorized window treatments, they have everything from a simple wand that hangs off the window that's got 3 buttons that just go up, down, and stop, all the way to stuff that you can reach out to your smart devices, call its name, and tell it what window, and it'll raise and lower it for you. And the other thing, they work with some pretty big name companies like Hunter Douglas and Custom Brands Group, who have just recently, as of last year, were approved that if you get honeycomb window shades from Budget Blinds and get them in your home, you can claim 30% of your product cost up to $1,200 as an energy efficiency credit on your taxes. If you don't know what that means by a credit, folks, that's $1,200 back to you. So you buy the window shades, you get a $1,200 credit. You're going to get $1,200 back out of that deal. So you buy $2,000 in window shades, you get $1,200 back. 30% of the product cost. You're not going to get $1,200, but you understand what I'm saying. So make sure you're reaching out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York, or whatever Budget Blinds is near you. Let them know you're there to belly up to the bar, and they're going to go ahead and give you a 15% discount off your entire order. That is Budget Blinds. All right. All the house cleaning is done. We had everybody showing up over here on Instagram, but all the house cleaning is done there. Anthony, how are you today?
I am very well. I'm a tiny bit tired. I started a new job and I'm
Oh,
working with 7th graders
oh
who
well.
have a lot of energy.
Oh, oh,
So I'm
oh.
teaching social studies for a middle school here in Connecticut, and I'm working with 7th graders, and they have a lot. It's 100 of them. So I have like 6 classes, and they come in back to back. So I'm trying to, memorize their names, keep people in line, teach, get them
Oh.
to the next thing, convince them that it's important to, learn how to write, learn how to think, and go to the 8th grade.
Now in 7th grade, is that world history in Connecticut?
It is, we just finished doing a lot of studying on genocide. So we're doing a lot of stuff on, we just
Really?
finished a chapter on genocide about a week ago. And I am working with them primarily on a lot of critical thinking and a lot of writing. So we're doing a lot of things around how you build a community and
Okay.
how do you build a community, in your classroom, in the school, in your town. Basically, how do you become a global citizen? And so
Interesting.
I'm doing it step by step with them and getting them to think about things and how, trying to get them to connect, genocide and the way people allow certain things to go on with some of the things that are going on now in terms of how people interact. We're trying to get them to draw the parallels, and it's tough because, like I said, they're 13,
Right.
and they're still pretty sweet. But
So it's
I,
interesting though
I
that you're
have
talking genocide though. That's I'm curious, like with the curriculum, and not to get off topic of what we want to talk about, but that I think it really falls into what you're trying to do with, helping Black communities and Black men in general
mhm.
with, healthier eating, healthier habits. Does this focus, like the curriculum that you're given, is it like, does it try to teach like the only genocide that ever happened was the Holocaust, or does it like, no, we have uh the Tutu and gosh, what was the name of the other tribe? Um
I know who you're talking about.
like does it
Yeah,
get into like a lot of those other genocides that are even modern genocides that have happened, or does it kind of just, hey, we only teach this one, this is the one we teach, or are you able to go off into some of the other topics?
from what I can see, we're able to go off in other topics
That's
because
amazing.
they cover a lot of different things. And of course, they talk about the Holocaust, but they also talk about slavery and other things like that, and all types of things that have happened since, World War II or World War One. So they
Okay.
cover a lot of things, but I'm trying to really make sure they understand how these things come about, because a
Interesting.
certain number of people, we had a long talk today about the severity of name calling and racial epithets, and
Or
how,
where it comes
you
from.
know it, yeah, and how how a lot of things get started that way. Things start off as a joke, and people just kind of like, oh, that, we're just playing around, we're just, and then you look up, and all of a sudden, it snowballed into something that's really awful. And
Absolutely.
I was talking to them today about the possibility of what it would look like to actually have really serious conversations about these topics. And what I told the class
Interesting.
was that, when these topics come up, we're not at a point yet we can have really serious conversations. So until we can, we're going to work towards that. And at some point, we'll be able to have those.
Bro, that's
And that'll be a
amazing.
great thing. So, and I'll bring
That's
in
awesome.
science fiction and a bunch of other stuff. So,
That's so awesome that you're covering that because, I mean, I it's funny you brought up the language. I just learned this the other day, and I never knew this. Do you remember watching Bugs Bunny?
yes.
And more and more I loved Bugs, but more and more I'm like, Bugs was low key racist. He was low key. Eh,
Yeah, sometimes some things don't age well. You go back and you watch
yeah,
them,
well, Peter Pan
and
did
you
not
think,
age well.
"Why did we think this was entertaining?" Or, "Why
Yeah,
do we think this was funny?" Like,
Peter Pan didn't
it
age well.
really isn't.
But I learned this one. So you remember, Bugs Bunny used to look at somebody like Elmer Fudd and be like, "What a maroon," and he would call him a
Mhm.
maroon. Do you know what that is?
I have not heard that term before.
You never saw him like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he called somebody a maroon?
I've heard him say that, but I didn't know, as a
So
kid, I
so a
didn't know what.
maroon goes back to a it was a derogatory term that came from a early African tribes that had escaped slavery
Mhm.
and had gotten away, and it was but something had happened where they had, they got called this let me see, because I'm messing it up, but it was like Maroon name. So it was interesting because we have the band Maroon 5,
Right.
and, but it was this very interesting where it was like, really? Like, this was a derogatory term. Maroon, see, now I've got into it. I'll find it because that's not what we're here to
Okay.
talk about, but I
Okay.
I make a lot of left turns. Maroon
That's
as
okay. Long as we come back.
and it was yeah, so maroon is a derogatory slang term used to describe someone as an idiot or a fool. The phrase "what a maroon" is an idiom referring to an idiot, first by Bugs Bunny, where it is, I can't find it. I'll find it. But, either way, so we talked a little bit before the show. You've
Mhm.
traveled from the Midwest to California, now back east, spent some time in Japan, spent some time in a you're a very world traveled man. And now you're in Connecticut,
Mhm.
in the land of milk and honey for you right now. That's your new land of milk and honey. Um,
Okay.
but but you've started on a journey. You're you're a vegan now,
Mhm.
and you learned about a new vegan drink before the show
Right.
called
Right.
rye whiskey. It's
Right.
completely there's no animal products in this at all. So, I guess what I'm curious before we get into, how you're trying to help black men to understand, you know, these health concerns. What started you on your own personal journey to say, "Hey, I've gotta change my diet?"
The reason I started was because I had been sick for a while. I was always having headaches. I was always dizzy. I couldn't sleep. I had all these health concerns, and I didn't deal with them, and I kind of put them to the side, and I just attributed them to getting older. Like, okay, I'm getting older, and I got to go to work, so I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. And I'd gone to the doctor, and they had taken me off of work 4 times. Like 4 times, they were like, okay, we don't know what it is, but it might be stress, it might be any number of things, right? So at one point, right before COVID hit, because my birthday is in February and COVID hit really hard in California at the beginning of March.
Yep.
So right before COVID hit, I went to the doctor. It was either on my birthday or maybe 2 weeks before. I went to the doctor. They took my blood pressure, and it was through the roof. And the woman who took the doctor who took it, she took it 4 times because she
Wow.
could not believe it was that high. I was walking around and I hadn't collapsed, that nothing had happened to me as of yet. And she kept saying, "Well, has anything happened?" And I was like, "No, why are you asking me that?" And she took it. It was super high. It was like 145 over 90 something, which is really high, right? And she actually told me, "You're getting ready to have a stroke. You're going to stroke out." So then the conversation became, "I want to put you on medication to deal with this." And we went back and forth and I fought it. I was like, "Well, I don't want to do that. Medications for old people. I'm not interested in that. Everybody I know is on medication. I'm going to be the one who's going to be different. No medication." So what I told her, I said, "Is there a way for me to not be on medication? What can I do to not be put on medication?" Because my mom had gone through the same thing. What can I do to not be put on medication? So her response to me was, "Unless you're going to lose like 20 or 30 pounds in a week or two, nothing." She wrote me a prescription. She never called it hypertension. She never gave me any tips on doing anything that didn't involve medication to manage it. She never gave me tips on eliminating it. She gave me tips on managing it, which is what you do with the medication, right? She would not let me leave the office, the building. When I was in California, I had an insurance company and they had everything in one building. So you go upstairs, you take a physical, you go downstairs, you give blood work. They had a pharmacy on the second floor. So they could call it in right then and there, right? So her thing was, when you're not leaving the building until you get this prescription. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that she was probably afraid I would collapse in the lobby and sue them. That was probably the
Still
thing, which
still
would
in
make
still in the
sense.
building, yep.
you know, let's get him out of here before he drops, right? So I got the prescription, grumbled about it, went on them, went on this medication, um, felt different, didn't feel necessarily better, but felt different because I was managing it. Still eating junk, still not, still not taking care of myself, but just popping these pills and going to work. Like the only thing that changed in my routine was that now I'm taking this pill every day. So then COVID hit, right? And I truly thought when COVID hit, okay, that's it, folks. This is the apocalypse.
Yeah.
We're all going out of here. I was waiting for the zombies to hit Long Beach. I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and
Yes.
wait for them.
Game on.
So my thinking was, well, if it's the apocalypse and we're all going out, who cares about health, right? Bring on the chili cheese fries. Bring on the carne asada fries. Bring on the ribs. Bring on the hot wings. You're talking about pizza. Bring on the pizza, right?
Yeah.
Because they told us, everybody told us, all the media sources told us, we're going to get this handled in 2 weeks, right? That was the first big,
Oh,
we're
I
going
don't even remember that. Oh,
yeah,
yeah?
well, see, first it was 2 weeks. Then it was, then I think they bumped it up to a month. Then it was supposed to be by Easter. So long story short, the 2 weeks ended up being, as you know, way longer than 2 weeks. So when the 2 weeks extended and that started in March, and we were still here in like August, I was like, well, that didn't pan out. So I just decided, I was like, okay, in September, I'm going to do a 30-day reset. I'm going to challenge myself for 30 days to do this vegan lifestyle and see if I feel any better. Because what I'm doing now isn't working. I'm still up at night. I'm still can't sleep. It's just now the pressure's lower, right? So September 1, I kicked off a 30-day challenge for myself. And did no meat, no dairy, none of that, right? I just wanted to see what would happen.
Right.
Increase the vegetables, increase the water. After 30 days, I felt it was night and day. I was like,
Wow.
whoa, what is going on here? Right. Now I was still very much a vegan, a junk food vegan, which means I was still eating Oreos, I was still eating
Right.
Fritos.
I know exactly what I have a vegan that's very close to me that went through that same thing, like, "Hey, look,
Yeah.
ring dings don't have any have any meat products in them. No face on this." Yeah,
Right.
but you're still eating
So,
shit.
but it's loaded with sugar and salt and oil, which is still bad for you, right? So I did it for 30 days, felt really great, and then decided, well, I'm going to keep it going and see what happens, right? That was September 1 of 2020. kept it going for 30 days. And at the same time, I've been wanting to do documentary films for about 17 years. At the same time I started this vegan journey, I got this opportunity. It literally fell in my lap. Somebody sent me a flyer via text saying, "Hey, you want to make films? Come to USC and learn how to make documentary films."
Oh, that's cool.
And the name of the course is called Documentary Filmmaking for Social Change. So I immediately jumped into class, right? Jumped into class, started learning how to make films, started doing this class every week, still vegan, you know. Thanksgiving came and went, no turkey, none of that business. Christmas came and went, no turkey, none of that, no ham, none of that business. And I said, hey, the sound effects, okay.
Sorry, bro.
But it felt great, felt really great about what I was doing and how I was feeling. Kind of kept going and kind of kept going. At the same time, I'm in this film class trying to figure out what film do I want to make? Because that was the goal of the film class. In 9 months, you should have a short made, between 15 and 30 minutes. Originally, I was going to make a film about police brutality and black men, all the stuff that was going on. And the more I started working on it, about halfway through, like most creative projects, everything collapsed, right? The bottom fell out. This didn't work out. This person pulled out. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do? Like, what story do I want to tell? And then somebody said something very interesting to me. They said, you could do a film about police brutality, right? And that's well within your right. But that would require people to change before something else changed. Is there a way for you to tell a story in a very short period of time about something somebody can do right now today to change their life, to change the trajectory of their health issue, their health or whatever they're trying to do? And a light bulb went off. And I was like, yeah, I can make a film about my vegan journey, because that was something I took on. I didn't wait for anybody to come and tell me to do it. I didn't have to have somebody outside of me fix it. I could fix it. And I was like,
It was
okay, I'm just
yours.
gonna keep
It
that.
was yours. It was personal. You
It
you
was
did it.
mine. It was personal. I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to ask for permission. I didn't have to run it by anybody. I didn't have to have anybody sign off on it. Like, this is what I'm doing. And I started documenting it. So I started meeting all these really great people on Twitter who were black and vegan, these young people who had cookbooks and shows and had done all this, had done all these really great things. So I started reaching out to them on Twitter. And at the same time, I also had a podcast that I was running. So I said, hey, well, can you come? Can you do two things? Can you be on my podcast and talk about your health journey? And can you be on this film? And everybody I talked to agreed to both. Yes and yes. So I had all this footage. Now, keep in mind, this is at the height of COVID. This is 2020. So you can't leave your house.
Right.
And
We're
some
on
kind of
lockdown.
way, yeah, everything was on lockdown. So some kind of way between Zoom, the huge garden I had in the front of my house when I was in California, and my kitchen, I was able to shoot this film. So I
Nice.
had all these different people, and I hired somebody, and she and I worked together, and she edited it for me, and we co-directed it, and we talked about what story we wanted to tell and what we wanted the people to feel. And it was an opportunity for people to see my journey and say, this is how I did it, and for me to encourage other black men between 40 and 60 to do the same thing. Okay, you can turn your health around. You can do this differently. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you permission, and you don't have to take a pill. You know, my goal was to get off the pills, and it took me about, I would say, about 2 years to get off. So
Really?
I haven't been on medication since October of 22. So it's
So it
been
wasn't
almost
like
2
it was
years.
an instant, like, look,
No, no, no. It was because
30 days,
because
I'm
remember,
amazing.
I was still eating crap. So
Gotcha.
it was like, you're taking the pill, but you're washing it down with a sleeve of Oreos. That doesn't help. That does not help.
It doesn't work that way. Well, let me
No, or
let
some
me
onion rings. Well, why not? It's onion rings. They're onions,
right,
but
this
you leave
onion,
them.
I
Right,
mean, give
right.
me a
They
break.
come
I
to the
use peanut
ground,
oil to fry it in. God,
right. But
you
before
guys
they
are
fried it and battered it, it was,
you
So
guys
yeah,
are
so it
so
took
much.
some time, and I was a little hard headed. It took some time, but the um, the more serious I became about it, and the more strict I became, then things started really picking up speed. And I actually took a really great course. I joined this group through the Black Health Academy, and they did a 12-week challenge, and it was no oil, no salt, no no oil, no salt, no sugar, and you had accountability partners, and you had to check in, every day. You had to do all these things. So
Like
it
having
was
a
strict.
sponsor in AA. You had an AA sponsor for sugar.
You need when sugar. Yeah, sugar is like sugar is very addictive.
Oh, people don't realize
Sugar is
it
very
metabolizes
addictive.
in your body similar to cocaine.
I
Yes.
was I was just getting ready to say, yeah,
Yeah,
I've read studies that say it's more difficult to give up sugar than it is cocaine. One, they put sugar in everything.
everything.
They put it in milk. They put it in French fries. They put it in meat. They put it in. I mean, I'm obsessed with reading labels because that was one of the things we were taught in that 12-week reset that I took. So I read labels and I see how much sugar they put in things, right?
It's wild,
You'll
isn't
see
it?
something on the shelf that'll say this is vegan or this is vegan friendly. But like now they have in the market, they'll have a whole aisles of things that are supposed to be vegan, right? Vegan friendly. And you turn it over, and the first three ingredients are sugar, right? Brown sugar, maple syrup, rice syrup. And it's like, okay, well, where's the actual nutritional value? The first three things are sugar. No matter what name you put on it is sugar. So yeah,
So
so
let me
that's what
ask
I
you
did.
some questions here. And folks, if you're interested in Anthony's journey and you want to know what he's got going on, it's Anthony-Carter, CARTER.com. You can see what he's got going on. There's also a link to Anthony's film. Uh Ask the old guy. You can see that on there, what he's talking about. So I gotta ask kind of this question. So here you are eating as a vegan, and I think in cultural terms.
Mhm,
And I know, like myself, I grew up with my mom's side of the family is from Tennessee, very Southern cooking. My father's side of the family is, even though my last name's Murphy, they're all Italian, very
mhm,
large Italian meals, you know, all these type of things. So culturally, and there's always that running joke, Anthony's a vegan. Just ask him; he'll tell you. That
mhm.
there's that
I've heard
cultural.
that before.
Right, it's like the CrossFit people.
Right.
So, at it and look, my my 2 best friends, you know, we probably, between Terrell and Ken, when we're together, it's always food something, and
Mhm.
I think about it, how is that was that initially received in the Black community for you when you
Mhm.
said to folks, "No, I'm gonna be a vegan." Like, did you instantly were like, "Oh, you've been, this is the Eric you're like in the Erica Badu camp now? Like, you're doing weird shit?" Or do you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Well,
how she ruined
there was
like
some of that. I think whenever you break away from um whatever the culture is, right? Whatever your identity is, whatever you've grown up with. I think sometimes my experience has been initially sometimes people may feel like you're being disloyal or you know, you're not one of us, whatever that
right.
means, right? And so people may take it personally. And so I think there is some of that, like you said about Erica Badu, there was some of that, right? And I think the only thing that changed it is that when people realized why I was doing it, because I haven't had to explain it a bunch, right? When people have realized, okay, I'm not doing it just because I can't figure out what else to do with my time. I'm not doing it because I'm bored. I'm doing it for very particular reasons,
Right, your health.
right? And then when you see other people in the community, like everybody, most of the people that I know, myself included, I know people right now, right, who didn't make it to my age because of health reasons, things that were preventable. So as
25?
you start to age and get older, you start to see, you see people who are, dropping because of hypertension or dropping because of diabetes. And and a lot of times, more often than not, it's because of their diet. And you ask them, well, what do you eat? Right. And they give you this whole list of, this whole moderation. It's like moderation doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. Right. So with me, I think I don't know how to put it, except I I think in my family, I've always been the weird one or the one who's always, doing something that people have never heard of.
Right. You're doing something
So
different than
so
everybody else.
here's so this is just one of many in a long list of, the Anthony Carter show. Now he's doing this, right? Like moving to Japan, right? Like nobody I know has ever done that. Nobody in my family has ever done that. I moved to Japan, right?
What was that
Then I
like
moved
being
to New York with
so
no
where'd you
money.
move to in Japan? Where were you at in
Where
Japan? Where?
I was at the foot of Mount Fuji in Fujinomiya.
Okay. So what was
So
it
I
like
was
being
there
a
for 6
brother in
months.
Fuji? Like, was
Okay.
it like, were you at a rare thing being a brother in Fuji?
Yeah. The day I left to come back to the States, it was so funny. I was in the airport and I walked in the airport and I think there was one other black person. And everybody just kind of like, they had that moment. People just kind of whipped around.
Where like the record skips on when you walk in the bar, like, "Hmm, what is going on here? I've
Right.
never seen this man. What are we doing now?"
So yeah, so there was some of that. But yeah, I think, but going back to your original question about, the food and
Food
getting, and
culture,
the
yeah.
culture, I think people, it's tough because a lot of the things that I've given up, I didn't give it up because it didn't taste good. I gave it up because I was trying to do something else. I'm committed now to doing something else. Like I know what that food tastes like. Like people will try to
Right.
tell you, like I was somewhere once at a party, some point in the last 4 years, I was at a party, and it was somebody had a birthday or something, and they had cake. And like, well, do you want to try some? And I was like, I know what cake tastes like. I don't need to.
Have you had listen,
You
I
know how
have a
much cake I've eaten in my life?
so I'm gonna tell you something, Anthony. So I live
Yes.
in a household where my
Mhm.
wife and we eat whatever, but I also have a daughter who's a vegetarian
Okay.
and a daughter who's a vegan. And
Wow.
they have a half sister who comes over to eat with us all the time, who's also a vegan. I eat vegan. Normally, it's because he walked past my tree stand and I knocked it down and then took it to the butcher shop. And I'm more than happy to eat that deer because I eat
Oh,
vegan. You like that joke? It was a good one. I know you liked it. That's how I eat vegan.
I'm gonna let that sit there for just a minute.
Just let it marinate for a second. But I can tell you, and I'm gonna defend Anthony a little bit here when people are always like, "Well, vegans just eat nothing but salads." Well, you've never come to my house where
Right,
I've gotta make a dinner, like, when we have big family meals, and I have to provide for me and my sons who want brie wrapped in prosciutto placed on the smoker,
right. With a
it
side
sounds
of bacon. I know how that goes.
it sound good, doesn't it, Anthony? I mean, I'm gonna suck you back into us. "Come back, Anthony,
I
come
remember
back."
prosciutto, yes, I remember.
I mean,
I had a
but
lot of Italian friends when I lived in New York. So yes,
see that I mean?
I know about the 7 fishes. I
Oh,
know about all that. I know all yes.
I mean, it's good stuff, but at the same time, I've gotta make meals like,
Mhm.
I'm making a brown rice and bean salad, I'm making, roasted Brussels so understand, folks, like, and I Anthony, one of the things I have to truly applaud you for is admitting that many people who go into the vegan diet initially start with, like, "I don't know what to eat, so let me look at this Twinkie, this Ho-Ho, this
Mhm.
processed, what's the ramen noodles and all these
Yeah,
things that are heavy, heavy sodium, heavy
right,
processing, and they don't help you none. They're not
right,
solving the problem. You're just you you think, "Well, because it doesn't have a face now in my meal, I've somehow fixed everything." I wanna ask this question, and I think this is an important question for you as a vegan, and this is, something I think about. Do you think it's the meat dairy side to things, that industry, or do you think it's that especially, because you're trying to help and I know we say black men, but would we say black men or minority, men? Or are you really focused on the black men
I
side
would
to it?
say, black men are my primary focus because I've
Okay.
done it,
I just wanna be
and
sure.
I know the things they're gonna run into. Like, I
I
know
wanna
that,
make
like
sure I'm saying it
yeah,
right,
yeah,
and I'm staying
mhm.
on target here. But do you think it's the meat, dairy, that side to it? Or do you think it's especially in like, I grew up in East Baltimore, I know what this is like. Or is it the taking away and creating of the food desert with the lack of access to fresh fruits, vegetables, quality fresh foods that have been taken out of communities? Which one do you think has more of an impact?
I think both of them. I think they work, I think most things in life, the older I get, the more I see or believe that most things in life are interconnected, right? So most things are not all of one thing or another. They're usually a lot of factors that kind of coalesce, they come together to create this result, right? So for example, when you talk about food deserts, right? Or you talk about certain neighborhoods that don't have fresh food or fresh vegetables, I know for a fact that, what you how does it go? What you crave, you consume. What you consume, you crave, right?
Right.
So when you give people things, and because I work with a lot of young people, I see them eating junk all the time,
All the time.
right? And I know that starts. It's like it starts early. It's just like when for example, when I was living in Japan, right? You can see the diet they fed their children. Now, whether or not, and because it's a child, they don't get to decide, oh, I don't want to eat that. I'm going to grab the car keys and go get something else. So you grow up eating whatever people put in
Right.
front of you, right? So then that becomes the culture. So if what's put in front of you is greasy and salty and sugary, and you use food, like you said about you and your buddies getting together,
Right.
I would be willing to bet that you and your buddies getting together is primarily an emotional connection for you guys to connect. It just happens that you do it
Absolutely.
around food. So th so there
Absolutely.
so
1000%.
so logistically and logically, you can get together without eating. You don't have to have food to get together,
Ooh.
right? So, I mean, okay. I mean, you don't have to have it, but 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 the agreement between the three of you is this is part of the equation, right?
Right.
This is
Absolutely.
what we do. So a lot of it is unlearning, like what I just said about this is what we do. So when you talk about a food desert and you talk about how people in the community have almost been trained or indoctrinated to like certain foods, right? To eat certain foods.
Right.
And it's and you literally have, when you take things out of your diet, I was telling somebody this on another podcast a couple of weeks ago. When you take things out of your diet or eliminate certain things, you no longer have a taste for them, right? Your taste buds will change.
Right.
Like I haven't had chicken and beef in such a long time. I have no craving for it, like none. Like even when I smell it, I'm like, what is that? Like, because I haven't had it. I haven't When I was eating it, I craved it. You
Right.
know, you're eating hot wings, so then you crave hot wings. But when you haven't had a hot wing in 4.5 years, you don't think about it.
I don't know what I would do
So
without
it's a
this.
combination of things.
I mean, I it's so interesting. And again, folks, Anthony-Carter.com to see what Anthony's got going on. So staying with what we're talking about here, when you're approaching communities, or let me roll this back a little bit even further. How are you approaching, you know, that 40 to 60-year-old black male community to say like, hey, this is the reality of I wanted to ask this, and I've seen a lot on it and I understand it. Like when your doctor was saying, "Hey, no, you got to take this medication. You got to take this medication." I want to ask this question, and this is kind of a tougher question to ask. Do you feel like the doctor forcing the medication on you instead of accepting the fact that you were like, "No, that I can change my diet and I could be better," was that medical stigma that comes with some of the issues that the black community has with the medical community, where they're like, "Yeah, nah, you can't, like, you're gonna have diabetes, you're gonna have this,
Mhm.
you're gonna have that." Did you feel that it was that way? And then how are you approaching other black men to say, "Look, this happened to me. This is how we change it?"
Okay, so that's two different things. So let me answer
It
the
is 2
first one.
questions, and I know it was just
Right.
stuff
So
that's in my head. This is how my brain works.
that's okay. So the first question, what I felt initially, what I still feel, and what I've seen happen over and over and over again is that you go to the doctor and people automatically make assumptions, right? When I went and they put me on the medication and I went in and had my blood pressure checked, I was 52. So the assumption is, well, you're 50, you're black, you're male. We probably should have done this a decade ago. And I'm thinking, well, where'd you get that from? Like I don't know where that comes from. You know, I know a lot of times, what I've seen is that people will make assumptions, doctors, because this is what people are taught.
Right.
This they look at you and they immediately pull out the pad, right, and start filling it out.
Let me get you this
And there's some
prescription.
things, and there are some things you cannot change. And my mother and I always joke about because she had a doctor that pulled that with her. And my mother's like, well, you know, some of the stuff I can't change. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna get younger. I'm not gonna be non-black when I come back the next time I see you. So that's not gonna we're not gonna switch
That
that. That's not
shit
that's
don't work
not an
like that.
option.
Shit don't work that
No,
way.
that's not an option. So what can we do given the set of circumstances, right? Which is once again why I made the movie. When I approach other men about it, what I find is that each one, I know some of the hurdles and some of the things they've been fed in terms of what they should be doing, what their health should be like. So what I usually end up doing is talking to people. I try to talk to people on an individual basis, and with questions around, um, if you were not taking this medication, or if you were in optimal health, what would that look like for you? Like, just getting people to think about what would that look like for you? What would you be able to do? What would you dream? What could you envision for your life if you weren't managing this condition? Because it is managing it when you're taking medication,
Right.
right?
100%.
Um, and my thing is, why don't we eliminate the need for the medication? And then it frees you up to do other things because you're not worrying about that all the time. So for me, it's an individual, case by case basis. I go on Facebook every week and I do, for lack of a better term, a friendly, loving rant about hypertension and my goal to get 100,000 of us off the meds and get healthy and go plant based if that's what they choose, but to definitely get healthy, right? So that would be my take on it. And now, does that answer your two questions? Because there were two
Well, it
different
it
things.
does because,
Yeah.
you said, now my next question though is because it's and folks were it I find this absolutely fascinating because
Mhm.
I was somebody, look behind the curtain for a minute. I was probably 20, think about it, 23, 24 years old. And I remember the doc coming to me like, you have high cholesterol. I was in the Marine Corps. I was PTing all the time. I
Mhm.
was, I could eat whatever the hell I wanted to eat, but I was very active person. So when, they're always like, you need to be more active. Bro, you couldn't get more active than where I was at. I can still run a first class PFT. I was doing everything.
Mhm.
So I always wonder, you know, now as I've gotten older, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit, how much of it is the things they put in our food? You hear about like I can't like I know the minute you give me something that has aspartame in it, which is
Mhm.
which is absolute garbage, folks. If you have anything with aspartame, throw it away. Don't give it to your children. It's garbage. I don't know why we deal with it. Most westernized countries have outlawed it because it's so
Mhm.
bad for you. Um, but are you putting together and we're getting close to closing the bar here, folks. So again, check out anthonycarter.com, Anthony-Carter, I should say. But are you putting together, have you put together, I know you're doing the Facebook stuff. You've got all the are you still doing the podcast?
No, I am not.
Uh,
It's on hiatus. It was up and running for
you
3
were making room
years.
for me. You were making room for me. I appreciate that. But like, are you putting together groups or have you worked to put like groups in different cities? Like, what are you doing from an organizational standpoint to have a support system for these individuals?
What I'm doing is I'm doing the Facebook Live every week, so folks can check me out on Facebook. The next step after that, I want to do like an introductory workshop, like a 2-hour workshop, just to give people like kind of the lay of the land, some basic information, tell my story. This is what I did. With ideally moving into after that, then moving into coaching and having workshops, larger workshops for people to come in for Black men 40 to 60 to come in and who are committed to combating hypertension without medication and the addition of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. I want them to come in. I'm going to commit to doing 12-week workshops and say, okay, we're going to clean this up in 12 weeks. Now, the goal would be that after the 12 weeks, people will have individual goals, right? When they come in, this is what I want to see happen, or this is what I would like to have happen. And the goal is, my personal experience has been, if you can commit to something for 90 days, 12 weeks, you're probably going to stick with it.
I would agree with that.
Or if you don't stick with it, if you go off the rails, or if fall off the wagon, you'll at least know how to get back, put yourself back on the right track. So yeah, my goal next is a free workshop, and then to do coaching workshops.
Now, why vegan, not vegetarian?
Good question. Because typically, make sure I get this right. Well, vegetarians usually, the ones that I know, and when I was dabbling in that, I was still eating cheese.
Yeah.
And still look at that.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. I mean, I really like
But
cheese.
that was the tough one for me to give up. Cheese and crab cakes. That was hard. It was
You could have been
okay,
a pescatarian. You could have been a pescatarian. I've always said, if I could do any diet, I could do a pescatarian diet. If you just told me, hey, look, all your red meat's out, but you could eat fish and shellfish and stuff like that, I'm good. I could do that.
But the stuff that's in fish and it's in the oceans, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily want that in your body either.
Yeah, I remember reading an article that said, what was it? Wild salmon is better for you than farm-raised salmon, because farm-raised salmon has a higher mercury level, something to do with the fish itself. It gives off something.
Right.
Whereas tilapia, which folks, tilapia, if you think tilapia is fancy, it's not. Tilapia is not a fancy fish. It just got a fancy sounding name. But tilapia is an example of fish that is better farm raised than it is if you had wild. You actually have to do your research into some of them better farm, but I find that interesting, because you could have.
And this is just for me.
Yeah, no.
This is how I do things.
It should
I
be
know
for
since you were in the armed services. For me, I'm typically, and it has gotten me into trouble on more than one occasion. But I'm typically all or
you
nothing,
in trouble. I
right?
couldn't imagine anything.
So it's
tells me
typically all or nothing. So either I'm not eating any of that because I'm on this path, which is why I don't do the flexitarian and the pescatarian and all this.
What is a
It's okay,
flexitarian?
are we in or out?
What is a flexitarian?
A flexitarian is, I've known people that do this. A flexitarian is somebody
A gym
maybe
workout?
they eat. No, that's a whole other conversation. No, the flexitarian is somebody who eats maybe 5 days a week. They're strict on plants.
Gotcha.
And then maybe on the weekends they go for the fish, the fish or
They have their big
shrimp
cheat.
or whatever.
Every weekend's a cheat day.
They have cheat days. So that's my experience of them. And so my thing is either go all in or not. Go big or go home. So that's just me.
Look, I can respect that. I have no problem with it, but I do.
Just here's a good example. This is the all or nothing. When I was eating all the meat and all that kind of stuff, I drank a lot of coffee, right?
Oh.
And people would say, "Oh, well, you can put 2% in your coffee." I'm like, "No, bring on the half and half. What are we doing here?"
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
So
guess what,
that's
folks?
an example. I was like, bring on the half and half. And if we really want to get it fancy, we'll go to Starbucks and make it into a breve, and they can steam the half and half.
Yeah, just get all. Well, what's funny about that is I had a buddy I worked with on the railroad, and he worked at a dairy plant.
Okay.
And we talked about that. And he used to get so mad about people that drank 2%. I'm like, why, bro? He's like, do you understand that 2% is nothing more than when the milk separates out? That's the watery part of it that has only a little. Oh, yeah. So guess what, folks? The whole milk is just where all the actual milk is.
Okay.
That 2% is nothing more than the watery part that has a 2% milk left in it. The rest of it is just watery garbage that you're not that you're just it's a byproduct. It really is a byproduct that they
Wow.
figured out how to, instead of taking the whole thing and just
How to
mixing
market
it.
and sell. Yeah.
Right. It's we took a byproduct, we put it in a bottle, and we made you think that somehow it was better for you.
Right.
I
And people bought it, and
and
people
people are like,
believed it.
well, it's the great oh, it's fat free. Fat free. Listen, folks, fat has flavor. That's why I'm fluffy. Fat equals flavor. Okay. That's why I'm fluffy right now. And it's
And
not the
even if
fat.
it's fat free, right? Even if something is fat free, if you turn it over and look at the box, not the sexy side they show you in the front, like, oh, look
Yes.
at this, fat free, and all the pretty colors. If you turn it over and look at the box and look at the ingredients, they put something in it, even though it's quote unquote fat free, to make it tasty.
Right.
They've probably
You got
doubled up the
4 pounds of
oil.
sugar in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's what I used to tell folks, like, you know that it's the sugar, it's not the fat that's ruining you because of the way your body just holds on to it. Our
mm,
tongues are designed to like sugar and salt. That's how we process whether or not something we should or shouldn't eat it as like Cro-Magnon man, you ate
right.
it.
This
If
will
it was
kill you, so
sweet,
don't eat it. And this,
if it was bitter and nasty, don't eat that.
right.
If it was sweet, I can eat this. If it was
Mhm.
salty, excuse me, I can eat this. But if it was bitter and nasty, let me
Right.
spit that out. Yeah, like people miss that mark. So what like do you have you set any goal? I mean, obviously we know it's 100,000 black men to do this and to get onto this program. But do you have any other goals like, hey, I want to do a TED talk about this
Um,
or travel with it? Anything else like that?
oh, absolutely. I love a TED Talk. So we're putting that out there now. A TED Talk would be great. I love to tour with the film and use it as a talking point, because the film is so short that when we were making it, the goal was when we were putting together the film, we kept saying, okay, how can we make a really impactful film that's entertaining and impactful and short? That's 15, 16 minutes, right? Because we wanted to make, because people have no attention span. So we didn't want to make something that was going to be 3 hours that
Right.
nobody was going to, because
It
nobody
was
wants to hear
yeah.
for 3 hours how, you should eat that. And nobody, so that was like, that wasn't going to work. So what I would love to
Bet
see,
your kale
I love
chips
a
for
TED talk,
hours.
right? I love a TED talk. I love to tour with the film. I love to raise more money to make a longer film. I love to do a docu-series with the film as a center. I'd love to coach and workshop other men and say, okay, look, let me walk you through this process because I've been through it. I can tell you what you're going to come up against. I can
Yeah.
tell you how when you go home, people are going to tell you, oh, well, well, macaroni, you can eat a little macaroni and cheese, that won't kill you, but you got
Right.
7 cheeses and a pound of butter in it. Yeah, right,
I like it. All right. See,
right.
you're talking my
See
language,
that?
Aunt
But see, that's what we used to do. We don't do that
Anthony.
anymore.
This is for you again. It's you're making it tough on me, bro. I like you a lot, and you're making this tough on me. Like,
I'm trying to save lives. I'm trying to save your life, Sean.
I mean,
Leave the the killer
che
7 cheese mac and cheese alone. Leave it alone. Walk
I make
away.
I make crab mac and cheese too, like
Oh, I've
crab
seen that.
meat in the mac and
I've,
cheese,
I've seen that.
and then the Italian herb bread crust. Oh, and
I've seen that.
you're making this tough. So Nate popped off. So I'm gonna ask Nate's question for him. So I actually do I don't know if I could definitely be a vegetarian. Like
Mhm.
that I don't have any issues with because really I catch myself most days. I'm like, I don't eat a ton of red meat. I like chicken. I love fish. That's that Baltimore upbringing, coming out, eating a lot of fish and shellfish. But do you
And I have
have
just so you know, I have a recipe
well, I
where
was
you
gonna
can
ask you
take these, you can take plants and I can make it taste just like a crab cake.
that's not a thing.
Yep, yep.
You can send it to me and I'll make it. You can send it to me, Anthony, and
Okay,
I promise
okay.
you, I will
Hit your
make
button again. Hit your womp womp button again.
listen.
No, I'm telling you, I have a friend. He's a chef. He's out of Oakland,
Okay.
And I think his name of his book and his company is Vegan in the Mud or Vegan Out the Mud. He has a cookbook that I bought, and he's from Florida. He's from
So he doesn't
Florida.
even know how to make a crab cake to start with then.
Okay, wait, let me finish. He's from
All right, I'm
Florida,
listening.
but he went to college in Louisiana.
Well,
So he
definitely know how
knows
to make one.
seafood. Okay, he knows
They fry
seafood.
everything. They fry everything.
But he's in his cookbook, he has a recipe for these crab cakes.
You send it to me. I'll make
I've made them, I think, twice. Now, my husband, who is not vegetarian by any stretch of the imagination, he's not vegan.
So me and your husband
When
can
I
hang out.
tell you he was plowing through those crab cakes, I said, you know, he kept jumping up from the couch, and where are you going? I was like, those are mine. Like, I made those
So
for
you
me.
send me that recipe, I will make them. I
Okay,
promise
I
you,
will
I'll
send you
make them.
that recipe. I will send,
Because
I'm telling
that's
you,
actually was gonna be my question for you is what is your go-to, like, vegan, and I think most people think like, well, vegans for a snack, they're just eating carrots and maybe, like, dipping it in
and
air.
grass,
Right, like, they're
tree
eating
bark.
kale tree they take a handful of tree bark and brush their
They've
face
had a
with it.
full day. Yeah, I
Now have you
know.
and I gotta ask this question real quick before you tell me what it is. Have you gone full vegan, like, you're not gonna wear leather shoes?
I still have leather shoes.
Okay, you're okay then.
Yeah.
Like, listen to me. Listen, because I know that vegan. I've lived with that vegan where they're like,
Okay.
"I can't wear leather shoes. This leather had a face
We
at
haven't
one
gotten
point."
to the footwear yet. I actually have a pair of leather sneakers I was wearing today that are very snazzy
Listen,
that
brother,
I wanted to buy for about 6 years, and I finally broke down and
get
bought
your
them.
buy
So,
your sneaker. Have you some good sneakers. What you need to do is
so let
get
me
the
tell you
Nike
my you
Nike
want
app.
to know my
You gotta get the
go-to
Nike app.
recipe.
You gotta get the Nike app. Do you have the Nike app?
No.
Bro, the Nike app has,
Okay.
like, 40% off brand new Nike shoes, and then
Okay.
every so often, they'll send you a code word, and you add it in, get another 25% off.
Wow.
I
Okay.
I buy my grandkids for, like, Christmas and birthdays, they only get shoes from Pop Pop, and I'm buying, like, $200 LeBrons for, like, 80 bucks
Wow.
off the Nike website. Like,
Okay.
that Nike website or the app is the best kept secret in buying shoes.
I will look it up.
So, alright. So, what is your
Okay,
go-to
so my go-to.
vegan
I
meal
got
and
a
snack?
couple.
Alright.
Okay, so my go-to, the crab cakes, which you don't believe because you hit that horn.
I'm
You don't believe they're
I'm gonna
good.
make them. I'm gonna make them.
Okay, the crab cakes is one. I can convert chickpeas into tuna salad. So it's like a tuna salad or chicken salad. Very good. Don't hit that button. Do not hit that button. Don't hit that button.
Like, I'm reaching.
No, no, you're not.
I'm
So the
reaching,
so
like,
the tuna chickpea salad. Um, what else? Obviously beans and rice. I'm
I
trying to think
love
of
beans and
something
rice.
that I made. Oh, um, I can make mushrooms. If you saute them or marinate them, I can make mushrooms that taste like steak that you
Are
can
you
put
doing
on
the
the grill.
portobello thing where, like, the portobellos
Yeah, those are good.
I've had that before. I like the lion's mane better.
I was gonna go to that. I was gonna say the lion's mane are really good if you want to make something like a make it almost like a pulled pork, or if you want to make something
Mm,
like I've seen people use lion's mane for like chicken, like making like chicken sandwiches.
you need jackfruit for pulled pork.
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to jackfruit. Okay, now jackfruit also pulled pork and barbecue. You can make we make really good barbecue out of jackfruit.
So, there's a place here in Albany, if you get lost somehow and end up in Albany, and, the guys it's a place called Organa. It's down in
Hmm.
Troy, New York, where I'm at, and the guy, he stopped doing it, just it wasn't a big seller, but I will tell you, his barbecue jackfruit sandwich, I would put it next to just about anybody's, pulled pork,
Oh, really? Okay.
and you would be like you wouldn't have known the difference. There was
Okay.
no way from a texture or flavor that you
Hmm.
wouldn't have known the difference. And that's what I tell and look, folks, we're getting ready to close everything up here. If you're finding me through Anthony or Anthony through me, make sure you're liking, following, sharing it. It really does make a difference. checking out anthony-carter.com. The foods we're talking about, I know most people who know me think I'm sitting around my house with a cigar and a bourbon and eating half a raw steak. I promise you I'm not. We've got a garlic garden. We've got an apple orchard. I plant
Wow.
vegetables.
Okay.
I do all those things because I'd rather eat as much of it that I know where it came from.
Mhm.
What's the one that we had a couple years ago? Kohlrabi. It's a if you can find them in the grocery store, they're about the size of a softball, and they have
Mhm.
a very anise kind of flavor to them.
Okay.
Super, super good. Um, and I feel like this is a conversation that we could have forever. And I want you guys to go follow Anthony and see what he's got going on, because we didn't even get to the fact that I hate that to eat healthy and in this country, I have to go to bullshit places like Whole Foods, Fresh Market, or Trader Joe's to somehow be able to get a food product that they claim isn't heavily pesticized or
Mhm.
somehow is better for me, that I have to pay $5 a pound more for it than anywhere else just to go to those places because of their marketing. There's no reason that in such an industrialized country as we are, we don't just have these in the grocery store.
Mhm.
Like, it should just be there. And
Mhm.
and like Nate said, food is awesome. I love food. Never, I'm gonna say this. This is horrible. Anthony's one of the good vegans. He didn't try to force it down anyone's throat, because that's the other side, I think, where people get like they can't deal with a lot of people who are vegans because they're like, you're like, hey, we're going out to eat. You want to come with us? I'm a vegan. I can't go with you. I need to go to special places that only carry my diet. And like you go into like Buffalo Wild Wings and they're like, do you not have any vegan options? Bro, there's carrots and celery right next to the hot wing. But you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's the
Well, then
mindset.
a lot of places, are carrying a lot more things these days.
Yes.
Most places have, even the big chains, most places have something on the menu you can eat, right? And if they don't, usually you can say, well, can you do this, do this, do this, right? Like even if you go to a breakfast spot and everybody's having, stacks of pancakes and waffles and all this stuff, you can
Oh,
easily say, I'd like some tomatoes, I'd like, an order of hash browns, and that's it,
well, there's
and
no
you can
eggs
eat and
in
go
there's
home.
no eggs in pancakes. There's no eggs in that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's like if I get the pancake mix, it's like the flour and so like the flour special flour mix and some water, and I mix it together. I don't put no
Check it.
eggs in
Check it, because I've seen when we make them from scratch here, there's no eggs, but I know in restaurants, they put eggs in them, they fry them in butter, they put a big
Oh,
stack of bacon on top of them.
yeah. Yeah, fry it up. All
You
right,
better
folks.
hit your buzzer again.
Yeah. No, this is you get this one for that. Cheers. Like nothing but
I
cheers
didn't
for
hear
you.
anything.
Oh, you didn't hear that?
I just heard boom.
Oh, I wonder why this was not working. See, this is why I ask people these things. That was not working, huh? Huh. Well, look, don't log off on me here, Anthony. We got to get ready to close up the house here, shut the
Okay.
bar down. I know you've listened to all 230 some episodes. You've completely immersed yourself in the entire bar culture here, and you know what's about to come. But what I need from you is what we get from every guest at the end of every episode is the guest always gets the final word. So what's the final word, Anthony?
The final word is take care of yourself, take care of the folks you love, and eat like you got some sense.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to put your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.